Okay, today's chapter is organizational structure and design. Guys, stop me and ask me wherever you feel you're not catching up with the speed or whatever concept that I'm talking on. This is a very important concept, so I would want you to pay attention, participate, give me your opinion. I'll really appreciate your perspective and your viewpoints. That'll make the class more interesting. Thank you. So today's chapter, the learning objectives, describe the six elements of what makes an organization structure or design. We'll also identify the contingency factors that favor both mechanistic model or an organic model of an organizational design. Sometimes we also refer to them as organization structure. So if I'm using the word organization structure, it simply means organizational design. Compare and contrast traditional and contemporary organizational designs, how companies have changed over the past many years, and so also their design, the way organizations are created, positions that are designated, and the structures they have evolved over a period of time. So we'll compare and contrast that. We'll also discuss the design challenges faced by today's organization. What kind of challenges do we have? So those will be the learning objectives. So the first one, describe six key elements in organizational design. So these are the six elements. Again, maybe a question for the midterm exam. Uh, Write a brief description of the six elements of organizational structure or design. See here, the word structure comes into place. So they mean organizational design or organizational structure. The first one, work specialization. So when you create an organization and when you create positions or jobs, you're basically looking at somebody who is able to do a particular job really well. A set of tasks and activities combined together to create a job. And those tasks and activities, a person who's taking that job should be really skilled at doing it. Like all of us, when we do something for the first time, we are not that efficient at it. We might not be that effective at it as well because it's for the first time we are attempting to do something. But then over a period of time, because we repeat, we become familiar with the tools that have to be used on the job, the software that might have to be used on the job, the kind of protocols and procedures that have to be used on the job. We become more familiar. And because of that, we become specialized in our jobs. So structure denotes positions in the organization where you need some sense of specialization. That means people taking positions in the organization structure should be very skilled at doing something because they've had a chance to repeat themselves doing the same thing again and again. They make fewer mistakes, quality is extremely good, and they're efficient at utilizing organizational resources. And that way, specialization, when you repeat something, your performance actually goes up. You repeat again, you become faster, more efficient, more effective, lesser mistakes, lesser error, lesser consumption of time and resources. So when specialization increases, generally the performance increases. But if suppose we continue to specialize in only one thing, your performance drops because you're becoming stale, you're becoming stagnant. Your performance plateaus at some point and then it starts declining because of boredom. You feel bored by doing the same thing. Perhaps you don't have the same energy and passion to do it really at the best. And how long can productivity or performance can keep improving? Because it's the same human being. If you want the performance to continue to improve, it's not just specialization. You might have to train people, get them to learn new skills, get them to learn new technologies, new approaches, give them challenging work, add some more responsibilities. So work specialization to some extent will increase the performance, but at a given point of time, it starts declining. So you all need to be specialized. Okay. Suppose you say you're a specialist in accounting. So obviously when I, give you a bunch of accounting documents or files, you look at the files and you can assess how good the organization is doing. What's the health of the organization, financial health of the organization? How strong are, their accounting fundamentals? How are they managing their current assets? How do they manage their cash flows? Are they in control? Do they pay too much of interest? Are you specialist in that accounting? Likewise, if you say I'm specialist in marketing, In what way are you a specialist? Do you do some marketing research? Have you had some opportunities to work for some marketing firms or in the marketing departments of different organizations? What kind of decisions have you taken? Product decisions, pricing decisions, placement decisions, you know, the price, product place, and promotion decisions, the marketing mix. So if you're an expert, can you evidence it? Do you know tools that you have to use? Do you use marketing analytics to make decisions in marketing? Do you actually manage customer relationships really well? So, what are you specialist in? So, specialization is very important. Okay. Then the second element of organization structure is called as departmentalization. You can actually combine jobs and categorize them based on departments. Now, departmentalization can be based on many things. One, it could be based on the functional, activities that managers have to do. Say, for example, all finance people doing finance activities, different functions of finance, are combined under one department called the finance department. Suppose you have a production supervisor, production manager, workers, anybody like that. They can all be combined under the production department. Now, if somebody is there doing recruitment, selection, training, payroll, performance management, all related to human resource, you can put them under the human resource department. Do you get it? So organizations are created based on different functions. One function, one way of departmentalization could be based on finance, marketing, HR, production, quality control. These are functions. They're grouped together. They have one boss. They all report again back to the top. So that's how an organization structure is created. Again, departmentalization can be based on geographic regions. For North America and South America, there can be one department. For our operations in Europe, we can have another department. For Middle East and North Africa, MENA region, you can have one department. For Asia, you might have Far East and Asia, you might have one department. For Australia and Asia Pacific or whatever, you might have one department based on region. Because the organization is so big and it operates in so many regions and countries, you think it's difficult for one particular, unit to manage everything. Again, each region might have finance, marketing, production, blah, blah, blah. So obviously departmentalization can be based on regions. Again, departmentalization can be based on the type of customer. Are you, talking to a government customer? Do you deal with, say, men's footwear, women's footwear? Each can be a product, right? Different types of products or different types of customers. You can do departmentalization based on product type. You can do departmentalization based on customer type. Say retail customers, wholesale customers, government customers. You can have different departments, retail sales, wholesale sales, or government sales. So you can have different departments taking care of different, government is a big customer for your particular product or service. So government sales has to have a separate department because there's so much of things going on there. Negotiations, deals, agreements signed off, and delivering the product or service based on customer type. Wholesale retailers, people like me who want to purchase some small software product from you, I'm a retail customer. New York Tech as a university, wholesale customer. They want to buy the software for all students, for all faculty, for all departments of New York Tech. It's a wholesale customer. So you can do departmentalization based on customer type, or you can do departmentalization based on product type. That's what is departmentalization. Authority and responsibility. I'm giving you just overview. These are there in greater detail in the next few slides. Authority and responsibility. The position that's been vested in a particular individual, and then that position gives him the power to take decisions, the power to control actions, the power to control outcomes, the power to utilize resources of the organization. How did I get that power? It's the position that's been given to me. If I didn't have the position, I cannot access resources of the organization. I cannot take decisions. I cannot control outcomes. I cannot influence action. I cannot mobilize any kind of activity in the organization if I have not been given that position. And along with that position, which is authority, comes the power to take decisions, power to influence people, their efforts and actions, and events and outcomes. I can influence all that. That's power. Responsibility. Now, when my boss tells me do this, Prabhakar, I have a responsibility. I'm responsible for that particular activity. I cannot pass it on to somebody else. It's an obligation to perform. My boss has told me do this. I have an obligation to do it. If I don't do it, yeah, I'm going to face the consequences. He's going to be upset. He's going to, or she's going to be really crazy. She's going to take disciplinary action. She might counsel me. She might fire me because she's my boss. So responsibility is an obligation to perform that I cannot give it off to anybody else. I have that obligation to do it. Authority, I can delegate a little bit of authority to you as my subordinate. I can say, I can say, here, Prabhakar, you have some authority. I have a lot of authority as your boss. I can give you some authority, Prabhakar. That can happen. Authority can be delegated. Responsibility cannot be delegated. Okay, like my boss in New York at New York Tech, he gave me a little bit of power in when I was the assistant dean in Abu Dhabi campus. He said, you can do this, you can take those decisions, I give you the power. Authority can be delegated. That means there can be some level of decentralization. Everything is not controlled in New York. Abu Dhabi had a lot of control myself. Decentralization. All decisions are not taken in one central office. Some decisions were taken in Abu Dhabi, decentralized office, the sub office, another global campus. I explained two things, centralization versus decentralization is also. Then span of control. See, when I started working, I had nobody to supervise. I just started my job. So somebody was supervising me. I did not supervise anyone. I was nobody's boss. Everyone else was my boss. So my span of control was zero because I did not control anyone. I did not supervise anyone. So my span of control is zero. The reason? I have no experience. I do not know how to manage others. I, somebody has to teach me what to do on the workplace. I myself, I'm dependent on someone else. So I just cannot supervise others. So my span of control, because of lack of experience, being my first job, my span of control is zero. But as you put on the years of service, as you learn all the skills that are required on the job, as you gain in experience and as you become more mature, your span of control increases. So, eventually when I was the assistant dean, I'm giving you my example, not just because I'm something great. It just made it so much easier for me to give my example. That's it. So when I was in Abu Dhabi, we had about 7 faculty, full-time faculty, and 3 adjunct faculty. So my span of control was 10. But if you come to New York, my boss had 33 full-time faculty, 12 staff, and I don't know, maybe 25 adjuncts. A lot of span of control because he's my boss. He's more mature, he's more capable. He has about 60 people under him who are reporting to him directly or indirectly. His span of control is very big. President of New York Tech has a very wide span of control. He literally controls everybody in the organization. So span of control depends on the position, on the experience, on the maturity, on the skill level. The span can be very large. Span can be zero, like when I started my job. So that's what is the span of control, the number of people you're supervising. The last one is formalization. It's the degree to which you can standardize a job. Suppose I'm a worker, and let's assume I'm making this mouse. I don't know if you see this mouse. So I'm putting this mouse together. There are little parts in this mouse. I have to bring all the parts together, and I'm putting this mouse together. I'm just a worker. I do the same job every day, every single day. I'm not designing the mouse. I'm just putting these components here and putting them together and sealing them up. This is the finished product. It goes through several steps, and I'm there in one of those steps. I don't do everything. I don't put all the components here. I just put one component here, and it's an assembly line. My job can be standardized. You can tell me how to hold this, what to do, and how do you finish. Send it to the next person who will do more stuff on this. Then he sends it or she sends it to another person. She sends it to another person. Finally, the product is ready. So each of our job is a small addition to this finished product, a very small step. That can be standardized. I don't need any freedom. I don't need flexibility. You can tell me, Prabhakar, do this, and do this. You're done. And continue. Don't make mistakes. Don't create errors. Don't waste time. Don't waste resources. Try to produce as many as quickly as possible. Let it go. Because the key is to increase the production of this mouse. As many products that we produce, the better it is because they're paying me for hours. Per hour, they pay me this much. So the faster I am, the more efficient I am, the more specialization I have, the better it's for the company. So my job can be defined. When you define clearly, when you standardize a particular job, that's called high amount of formalization. Can I can I define a professor's job, how he or she should be teaching? Can I tell she as a professor should teach like this? Is that possible? You cannot standardize how I'm going to teach in the class. There's no one perfect way of teaching. I may have my own style of teaching. My research is very different. My life experiences are different. My experience with the industry is very different. So you cannot standardize my job completely. You can standardize some parts of it. Use Canvas, use visuals, use videos, use slides, use other tools. But you cannot tell what I'm going to speak, how I'm going to engage my students. So my job cannot be completely formalized, cannot be completely standardized, cannot be completely defined. Likewise, if you go to the top level, CEO, the president of New York Tech, or the CEO of a company, can you standardize their jobs? You cannot standardize their jobs because they have challenges every day. They're very different. They're meeting up with environmental changes. They're meeting with competitors, moves and counter moves. So obviously you cannot standardize their jobs. Their jobs are not formalized, not standardized, cannot be clearly defined every day, day-to-day basis. So these basically are called the six elements of what defines an organization structure. Let's see them together, okay? One after the other. So the first one, specialization. This is what I was saying. If you look at y-axis, it's productivity or performance. And if you look at the amount of specialization, it goes from low specialization to high specialization. As the specialization increases, the performance increases. That's what I was saying in the last slide where I was explaining this. Your performance increases because you're repeating, you're becoming specialist. But at some point of time, the law of marginal diminishing returns, you must have studied this in economics. Your productivity doesn't keep on increasing to an infinite timeline. It starts decreasing, it plateaus, and then it starts coming down because of the diseconomies of human potential or capacity. If you train me here, my performance might increase. You train me how to use a new technology, my performance might increase. You train how to use another software, my performance might increase. But you don't do anything, my performance will increase to a particular point, then it will go down because I don't see, some novel way of doing things. I cannot find a better way of doing things. I become bored of doing the same job. And then, the human diseconomies will set in and my performance or productivity start going down. The second one, which I just explained to you, departments, the way you group jobs, how the work can be performed, can be based on function. The functions can be, as I explained, engineering, accounting, information systems, HR. Each is a department. Based on what? Based on function. The second way of looking at departmentalization, how do you make these departments? It can be based on number of product areas like women's footwear, men's footwear, apparel, and accessories. Each of that is a separate department because you have many product lines, you have many locations. So each can be a department because you're big, your operations are in many places. The departmentalization is based on product categories or product lines. Then the next departmentalization can be based on type of customer. I explained this. Your wholesale customers are different, retail customers are different, and government customers. Their demands and processes and procedures are very different. So you might have separate department for wholesale, separate department for retail, and very separate department to handle your government customers or clients. Then it could be based on geographic region. I think I explained that. Here they're considering only America, so North, South, Midwest, and East. I was talking about a global scenario where Americas could be under one department, Europe could be under another department, Middle East and North Africa could be another department. Asia and Far East can be another department. Australia and Australia or Trans-Tasman can be another department. Depends on geographic region. You can also do departmentalization by based on process. So testing is a process. I'm sure you know software engineers and people who are into computer sciences and cybersecurity and all that kind of IT related courses. Testing is a process and payment could be a process. So each testing could have a department, payment department. You could have different departments based on what processes you're doing in the organization. So this is the second element. First one is specialization. The second element of any organizational structure is the way you group people and jobs together to do something. And those are called departments, and departments can be based on any of these criteria. Any questions till now? Okay, I'll take that as no questions. Okay. Types of authority relationships. Now, I explained very briefly what's authority. It's the position that you're vested with, and that gives you the power to take decisions. So, how are authority relationships defined in an organizational context? This is a typical organization structure. You have the lowest level here, district, heads, regional heads, vice presidents. You have two executive vice presidents, and you have the president here, who's all reporting back to the chief executive officer at the top. Now, if you look at it, this diagram or this structure, this organizational chart, you might use whichever name. Sometimes they refer to them as organizational chart, or you can use a organizational design. Sometimes you might use organization structure. If you look at it, District E head, person who is in charge of sales for District E is reporting back to that region 2, because region 2 has A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These, 7 districts fall under the region 2. So they all are coming from here. So they have to report to region head 2. And if you look at different regions, which could be east, south, northeast, whatever, midwest, and stuff like that, each of them is reporting to one vice president here. Maybe it's vice president sales. This is vice president HR. This is vice president production and quality control. This is vice president information systems. This is vice president finance and banking. So you're reporting, we're talking of sales. So this sales head is reporting to the regional sales head. All these regional sales heads are reporting to the vice president, VP sales. And of course, all of the VPs are reporting back to the president, who reports to the CEO. That's how the chain of command goes. It goes from here to here to here to here to the top. That's what we call as chain of command and line authority, because you're reporting straight back to your supervisor. It's called line authority. You have an obligation to report back to your boss. So it's a line authority. They are supervising your work. That's why they are called line authority. CEO is supervising the work of the president. The president is supervising the work of all VPs, vice presidents. Vice presidents are supervising the work of regional heads. Each of those regional heads will supervise the work of district sales heads. So obviously that's the line authority. And chain of command, instructions flow from here to this person to these people to the regional heads, and from here the instructions flow here. And then the report and feedback go from here to here to here to here to. Look at this. Structure is such an important thing, to send instructions, to tell what we expect from each person, to give authority and delegate some part of the authority, to make individuals responsible for certain outcomes, to collect feedback, to take in reports, to see if the progress of the company is as expected. All that's happening because of an organization structure. So structure literally drives every organization. If you get this wrong, you're done. The best goals, the best strategy, the best people, the best skill that you might have is all getting wasted because this structure is not working for you. So please, guys, I know you're just taking this course maybe like an elective. You will be somewhere in this in the future, whichever company you work, whether you join here in 2 years, 3 years time, you become here, and 7 years time you're here, 12 or 15 years you're here, and hopefully 20 years later you're here. All of you will be part of an organization structure. So you should know how many levels you're going to, jump and progress and have career progression before you become the CEO, your dream job for your life. Get a very hefty paycheck and the best perquisites and benefit packages that the CEOs get, and they get, ESOPs, employee stock option plans, deferred bonuses. It's huge. When you start here, it's not as much. It increases, gets better, bigger and better. It's really very handsome salary and pay package. Here, it's your dream time. Okay, you make tons of money. Of course, a lot of risk, a lot of responsibility, a lot of leadership. Okay, so structure, very important. Let's go off to the next slide. Now we spoke about line authority because they're supervising, they're sending instructions, they're collecting feedback, and they're directly reporting to them. That's called line. But there is a staff, somebody who is an advisor. Look at this person. He's not directly under the executive director, but he is an advisor, assistant to the executive director. That's what we call as a staff function. The assistant to the executive director is not reporting directly to anybody as a boss, but he's being an assistant to the executive director in the function of being an advisor. Okay, do you get that? So any advisory role that you have is called a staff function. So that's what is also very important. The dotted line is the staff function. The line function is the dark line. Line is authority is dark line. The staff authority is the dotted line. So whenever you play, I could be, under the line. That means I'm actually reporting to my boss. I can also be a staff for someone else, some other department. Do you get me? I can play two kinds of, I might have two authorities. One is the line authority. That means I can supervise my, subordinates. I can report back to my boss. I can collect feedback from my team. That's line. But if I'm advising some other department or some other individual or position, I become a staff. I have the staff authority. Hopefully I explained this. Any doubts on this?
Are all six of these elements involved in every organizational
No,
structure?
no.
Okay, this is okay. These are just the elements that could be.
Yeah, if you're a small company, you might not have that clear demarcation. Those many levels, those many departments, the line authority, staff authority. It might just work seamlessly because you're a small company. You might not even have those titles and designations because it's so small. But as you become bigger and more complex, everything comes into play. What I'm showing you today in this class is maybe just the beginning. Structures are very fascinating. Every organization, large organization, has a structure, and these structures are not static. They keep changing, they keep evolving because jobs change. The way work flows changes, and you might reorganize several times in your company's lifetime because you're adapting to your environment, you're adapting to the nature of work. Maybe with technology changes, you reorganize your department. So all this comes into picture eventually as you grow big and become complex in terms of your geographic spread, number of product lines that you are having, and the kind of technologies that are involved, the level of transactions that go on in the organization, whether it's communication or resources, movement of resources, whatever. The more complex it becomes, there's no way you cannot deal with your everyday affairs without an organization structure. You have to have it. So when you ask me that question, should every organization have it? The answer is no, but eventually you have to. So unity of command. This is again very important because you want one boss. Sometimes it's strange. You might be reporting to more than one boss. So that's where you have to be careful that you get the instructions clear. There's no confusion. You're not actually, trespassing. You're not just missing the chain of command, and you're not upsetting any person, or you're not passing on information which you shouldn't be passing on. So obviously these are things that you might want to be careful about, because if you have more than one person you're reporting to, you got to know what you're reporting to whom. And that's clearly what the structure of the organization tells you. As a line authority, I might be reporting to my boss certain things. As a staff or advisory authority, I might not report, but I might serve some information. I might help other departments. That's where you have to be clear of how you create the structure, and that structure has been communicated to all members. Yeah, you have a question? Have somebody asking a question? Yeah, this is what I spoke about. Another element of organization design or structure is authority. It's that position that's being given to you where you can hold a position in the organization and that you have a job to do. You have control over the goals that you and your team have to accomplish. You have control over resources. You have control over certain decisions that you can take, certain policies you can make and implement. So that's what is authority. Power, every position has to have some power, and power is an individual's ability to influence particular decisions. One of the sources of power is positional power. Power can come from various sources. So we'll go back to that. Any ability to influence people's decisions is called power. So if I can influence you positively, if I can inspire you to take management major, for example, and make you realize that all of us are managers and all of us can be leaders, if I can inspire you towards that, I think I have power. But that power that I'm having is not because I'm just a professor and I have control over your grade, but because I have access to knowledge and information which might inspire you, which might make you say, oh, management could be another major, management could be a career for me. I might move, change my major from other areas to business. Hopefully you do this. I'm trying to sell off School of Management and its programs. Now, power versus authority, there is a slight difference. When you look at the organization structure, this is authority. The formal structure tells who is having authority over whom. So here, if you look carefully, marketing person has authority over these five people's work and how they get work done. So, and the accounting person has control over these three people, and then the accounting manager, controls where the department is going and what has to be accomplished. Finance, they have control over these three people. Production has control over four people. Research and development department has two scientists working for them. HR has three people, somebody who takes care of staffing, acquisition, development, and payroll, whatever. So this actually defines authority. But if you look at power, it's a little different. This is like a cone. It's called a power cone. So if you look at all the functions that are there right at the bottom, finance, accounting, marketing, production, and HR, the power then actually at the top is the maximum power. The CEO, perhaps in most of the cases, has the power. Just give me a second. Um, we'll take this call. So we go back here, and the power cone is like this. So at the bottom are the functions, and the maximum power is at the top. Maybe the CEO and his team, small team of members there have a lot of power. At the middle, there are a lot of middle level managers who are having power. And those managers who have extra power are those who are closer to that core team at the top. So it's important. And if you look at the center, there is this line called the power core. Those are the strongest ones, all the way from the top till the last person in the organization. They're powerful people who influence the rest of the people around them. That's why it's like a cone. What you might want to pay attention is the formal position just determines what position you have, what job you do, what are your key performance indicators, like in the top diagram. But the power that you get is coming from your special set of skills. It could be power generated because you're an expert, power because you have access to information, power because you have a charismatic personality, power that can happen over a period of time. Your ability to reward people, your ability to punish people. There could be different sources of power that you're dependent on, and it's important that you become part of the power cone or the power core, so that you have more control of what happens to you, what happens to your people, what happens to your department, and eventually what happens to your own career. So you got to be in the in group. You got to be at the power center. You got to be at the nerve center of the organization. You got to be the spinal column of the company. I used all kinds of words to tell you how important power is within organizations. If you have any experiences, feel free to share as I speak. So yeah, I was explaining types of power. Coercive power, power based on fear. I can punish you, that's why I have power. Reward power, I can actually distribute something that's of value to you. That's why I have reward power. Legitimate power comes from the formal position in the company. I'm the CEO, that's why I have power. Expert power. I have a lot of special skills and knowledge. That's why I have expert power. Referent power. I can identify myself with some powerful person in the company. I know the CEO of the company. The CEO is a friend of mine, and that suddenly I become powerful. And if you all guys know that I have the connection to the CEO of the company, I think you will start behaving really nicely to me because you know I'm connected to the CEO. I'm just giving you an example. I have no connection to any CEO anywhere. But I'm just giving you an example. That's called referent power. So power can come from any of these sources: power to punish, power to reward, power from position, power from being an expert, and power just because I know somebody, I have connections to somebody. So these are all types of powers that can happen within the company. Span of control, I told you what is a span of control, the number of people that you can manage and supervise. And that actually increases when you have more experience and training, then you can have larger span. If you have a similarity, people under your control are doing the same job, same kind of activities, then you can have a large span. But if there are each of the person that you're supervising does very different things, very complex things, then the span of control is very small because people under you are doing very complex stuff. It's not easy to supervise them because each of that requires a lot of time and expertise. So your span becomes narrow. So span of control depends on a lot of other things as well. Centralization versus decentralization, I think I explained that. If every decision is taken at the upper levels or in one head office, say in New York, that's called centralization. If some of the decisions have been given off to the lower level managers, or me in this case in Abu Dhabi as the assistant dean, if you gave me some power to take some decisions locally, then you call that decentralization. So you've got to ask yourself, do you want to work with a company where there's a lot of centralization versus work with a company that's little decentralized, give you some sense of freedom, some sense of authority to take your own approach and decide your own strategies of how you can make things, how you can mobilize action, and how you can accomplish organizational goals. Formalization, I explained that to an extent with which you can define a particular job. So if it was the job of manufacturing this mouse, for example, and I'm just one part, one member in the assembly line, you can standardize my job. You can define it completely. But somebody's job, like the CEO's job, the president's job, the vice president's job, very difficult to. You can standardize only some elements of it. You cannot standardize the whole job because they're changing all the time based on what they're supposed to be doing. So that's formalization. So these are the six elements of what makes an organization design or structure. Now we come down to two major types of models of organization design. One is called the mechanistic model. Please, this is very important. Organic model. So what makes a mechanistic model of an organization design? What makes an organic model of an organization design? So mechanistic organizational design, they're rigid, very clearly defined organization structures. They have fixed duties, a lot of rules to be followed, formalized communication channels, who reports to whom, that's clearly defined. Decision making is in the center at the top, and they're very tall structures, meaning that you have many levels. This is the entry level. There are many levels before you reach the middle level. There are more levels before you reach the senior level. Then you reach the topmost level. There's so many levels, and that's why this structure is called a tall structure. All these characteristics is what makes a mechanistic structure or mechanistic organizational design. Now, on the other side is a structure which is based on collaboration, both vertical is this, and then horizontal there's a lot of collaboration, and the duties are not completely fixed, they're adaptable. There are not so many rules that you have to play by. Communication is very fluid. It's two-way, everybody is connected to everyone, so there's plenty of informal communication as well. Decentralized decision taking, so not all the decisions are taken by one individual having one position. A lot of people in the organizations have some authority to take certain decisions. Not too many levels. The structure is very flat. So meaning that you can really approach your boss. You don't have to go through a million levels here. Like here, You write to your boss writes to his boss writes to her boss writes to another boss. No, it's going to take forever to reach there, and by the time you get a decision, it's too late. But an organic structure, communication is fast, it's fluid because it's a flat structure. You don't have so many levels. So that makes what an organic organizational design look like, and that's why it's the shape is literally organic. It's not very clearly defined. Any questions till now?
So, Professor, which one is the best?
There's no one best structure. Suppose you it depends on what you're doing as a company. Suppose we're manufacturing something simple, not sophisticated like a mobile phone. We're just manufacturing something like marker pens. Suppose I'm manufacturing marker pens. Why do I need collaboration, flexibility, informal communication, decentralization? No, I can go with a mechanistic structure, define the job, fixed duties, a clear set of norms and rules, formalized communication channels because it's an unsophisticated product. Many of the production units in China, all the stuff that you see and buy today, the dollar shop and all that stuff that we get, I think they're all mechanistic structures. Use less time, use less resources, be as productive as possible. There's no need of flexibility here. But if you think about Apple, design is important, operating system is important, ecosystem is crazily important, innovation every day is important, organic. Google, flexibility, creativity, innovation, right? Organic. So where there is a lot of innovation going on and flexibility required, of course, sometimes organizations become so big. Suppose you have 50,000 employees. Can you be organic? It's very, very, very difficult. You have to be middle somewhere. There's elements of organic, but there's elements of mechanistic because organization is so big. If you say no rules, few rules, and informal communication, it's going to be chaotic. So you don't want that. So you take a little elements of organic for, say, decision making, decentralization, and stuff like that. But you also have some structure. So you create some kind of rules and policies so that it's a bit more organized. You don't want it to fall under the pressure of being organic completely because the number of employees is huge. The operations are very complex. So when you ask me which is the best one, I'll simply put it diplomatically. It depends. You pick and choose the characteristics that work for you in your favor for your company that fit in with your technology. Suppose you have handcrafted, limited edition, crafted design product. It's only few. It requires handcrafting. You cannot have rules. You cannot have fixed duties. You're asking your customer how should the design be. You're taking inputs. You're designing one based on, say, CAD, computer aided design. You do a laser generated prototype, and then you manufacture the actual one. So it's one piece that's required by your one specific customer. It has to be organic. There's no other way. But if I'm producing the same car, a run of the mill, it's an assembly line. You need some elements of mechanistic structure so that you do it fast, you do it efficiently, you do it with least amount of errors and quality issues. So both are good, but how do you want to use it? You might have certain products which you want to be organic. You might have certain products where you want to be mechanistic. You want certain technologies that give you flexibility, be organic. You want to use certain technologies in certain production lines which are very fixed, mechanistic. So within the same company, I might have certain parts of the organization which are more organic. I can have certain parts or elements of what I do as a company being more mechanistic. That's the smart way of thinking. But yeah, good companies do it that way. Strategy and structure, that's what I said. See, if you have a simple strategy, use a simple structure. But if your strategy is elaborate, very complex, then you have a more complex structure. That's precisely that. See, look at, say, I can give you examples. Fujifilm, for example, they manufacture cameras. Fujifilm, I think you all know, is a Japanese company which is very well known for their cameras and lenses. Now, Fujifilm also is doing research in COVID vaccine. How can they have a simple structure? Because that business of making cameras and lenses is so different from research that goes on in making the COVID vaccine. So it's got a very elaborate strategy because each of their businesses have a different strategy. That means each of their business has a different structure so that it helps them achieve what they want to achieve. Yeah, this is I don't know. I don't believe in the number. They say less than 2,000 employees, you can be purely organic. Makes sense to me because it's very easy for that informal communication to flow back and forth. Mechanistic for more than 2,000 employees, they say you will lean towards being more mechanistic. I would think with all the technology that's available, you can still go with a larger number than 2,000 for being organic. You don't have to start becoming mechanistic as soon as you reach that 2,000. So that number is not a golden rule. It all depends how good, how capable your people are, how good your leaders are. Suppose you have mature individuals, skilled people, highly motivated employees, and you have a great leader. You can have larger number than 2,000 and still be organic. But if I have people who are not capable, who have to be told what they should be doing, they're not so skilled, I better go for mechanistic structure. So I'm answering your question. The follower maturity levels, the follower skill, the follower's passion, and the type of leadership that will determine what kind of structure you will have eventually in the company. So technology, I think I explained that. If you're producing something that's more sophisticated, I know this is a very crude example, but they didn't want to take names, I believe. If you're producing something more sophisticated, perhaps organic structure with some mechanistic manufacturing in China, designed in California and assembled in China. Design is very organic in Apple. Production is very mechanistic in Foxconn in China, correct? So, there are two elements. Design elements is what Apple is bothered about because the better they design their software, their hardware, and how their, ecosystem works, the better is the possibility that we'll retain customers. Apple can retain their customers and their brand identity, their reputational capital can stay because the design has to be very organic. You know, Apple has something called as design thinking. When you see Apple product, you think, this has to be the best way, say AirPods are. If you look at the AirPods, you think, this makes sense. It has to look like this. It has to behave like this. Other things are not as good. Their design is not as good. That's what Apple fanboys all speak about. I don't use Apple, so I'm not going to, but I'll speak Apple because your generation loves Apple. But if you're producing something simple, run-of-the-mill multivitamin tablets or something like that, you can go mechanistic all out. Just keep the safety standards, make sure FDA is happy with their production process, the quality is great. Just continue to manufacture as long as there is demand for your particular multivitamin tablets. That's so technology, structure, they're very related. Environment, if you have a stable environment, just manufacture as quickly as you can, mechanistic. But suppose things are changing because of COVID. Can you have rigid rules? Can you not be flexible? You have to be flexible. Organic. I think that's what McDonald's has done, for example. DoorDash and Uber Eats, and they've taken in, drive-in orders. They've increased the number of, range of offerings that they have. They have certain times they give you, deep discounts, free little freebies. You can test certain new products of theirs, new food offerings of theirs. All that kind of stuff is being organic because the environment is very challenging because of COVID situation. It's very dynamic. And that's why organic structure, you have to think outside the box. Otherwise, you'll be out of business. So environment also will determine what kind of structure is best for you. Going off to learning objective 3 today, we want to compare and contrast traditional versus contemporary organizational designs. So you have some of them: simple structure, functional structure, divisional structure. So simple is pretty simple. It's flexible, inexpensive to maintain, clear accountability, and it's very fast. The weakness is not appropriate as organizations grow. You cannot keep a simple structure. Look at the simple structure. There's one person here, there are two people here, or two departments here. The blue box, big box, is the top management. There's only one layer, the small two boxes below, blue boxes, the small ones, is only one layer. It is very simple. It's fast, it's flexible, it's inexpensive, clear accountability, who's doing what. But it's not appropriate when the organization grows. It grows large. Then you can go with functional structure. So it's cost saving from specialization, economies of scale, minimum duplication, people and equipment. Employees are grouped with others who have similar tasks. So finance people grouped in the small blue box, violet box, marketing people grouped here, accounting people grouped here, production and quality control grouped here. They're reporting, say, perhaps to one person here, another person here. They are reporting back here. So it's cost saving because of specialization. People are grouped together based on their functions. It makes sense. But the pursuit of functional goals can be possible. Finance can achieve their goals. HR can achieve their goals. Production quality control people can achieve their goals. Marketing and sales guys can achieve their own goals. So functional specialists become insulated. Sometimes, they're not connected. They start working in silos, and therefore, it might not be the most effective sometimes. I mean, those could be disadvantages or weaknesses. The last one is divisional structure. Look at the layers. It has one, two, three, four layers. So it focuses on results. Each division, suppose General Electric, I'm taking the example of a company called General Electric. They have medical systems. That's a division. They have, say, aircraft engines. That's another division. General Electric can have the third division, oil and gas is a division. GE Capital can be a division. So GE can have, all kinds of, they have wind turbines and, the renewable energies. That might be another division. So each is a different product category. Each is a different kind of service. So each division is managed separately because it's a large organization, company having different divisions, and each is different. GE Capital different from GE Oil and Gas. General Electric oil and gas is different from General Electric, say, medical equipment and medical systems. So each is a separate division, and you have to have a separate strategy. You have to have separate set of skilled people, and so that you can succeed in each of those divisions. So sometimes it might become costly because there are resources are limited. You're using resources, the spread of resources, finances, and people. Everything is being spread across different divisions. You might have some divisions not really doing that great, some divisions doing okay. General Electric right now, the company that I just told you from the last couple of years, they've been struggling. They've sold off a lot of businesses, a lot of their divisions have been sold off. Some of the divisions have been cut in terms of size of operations. They've had a lot of problems. This is a company, General Electric is a company more than 100 years old. A very strong company right from the times of Jack Welch. But now, right now, is struggling, even including the stock prices are not doing great because they have seen a huge fall. This is pre-COVID, they had a fall. I don't know what's their current state. They're still struggling, I believe. That's because they've got those challenges in terms of leadership and how quickly they're able to adapt to the environment. If they didn't do things quickly enough, those are the kind of challenges that they're facing right now. That is what they will face. There's another way of looking at organizations as a team structure. Now, this perhaps is, the easiest example that I can give you is in the software field. So all the software teams, they have teams working. Some software team is working with, companies in the UK. Some software teams in the same company are working with, clients in Russia. Some software teams in the company are working with clients in Australia. And some of the software teams in the company are working with clientele in the Americas. So it can be possible because of teams. So each team has a team leader. Each team has a given set of people with a set of skills for coding, programming, debugging, and customization that's required by the clients. They make a software product. They deliver it on site, and they make sure that the maintenance is done, the software is working, and it does what it's supposed to be doing. So team structure is so effective because you can have teams working with customers or clients in UK, in Australia, in Russia, in Brazil, in US, so working all over the globe. So to me, team structure, some organizations and types of businesses, is a great way to do business. Matrix organization and project structures. Now, this is another interesting way of organizing your work. This is one company, okay? This is one company having what? Design department, manufacturing department, contract administration department, purchasing department, accounting department, and human resource department. Each has a distinct color. This, whatever burgundy color is design, uh, whatever color this is, like grayish, whatever, is manufacturing, dark green is contract administration, uh, blue, turquoise blue kind of thing, purchasing, accounting, deep blue is accounting, beige or yellowish mustard yellow is human resource. If you look at it, there's another extra color here. So different projects. There's Project Alpha, Project Beta, Project Gamma, and Project Omega. So there are four different projects, but the same departments. So this department, design engineering, is working with Alpha project, one Beta project, and one Gamma project, and one Omega project. They have the support in manufacturing from the manufacturing department for each of the projects. That's how beautifully they can organize it so that you use limited number of people, limited number of resources working on four different projects at the same time. Again, that depends on how capable these people are. You want to hire smart people who know exactly how to work on multiple projects. In this case, design group, suppose you're part of the designing engineering team, you should be able to, you're capable of working on four projects at the same time. If you belong to the manufacturing, can you support manufacturing on four projects? Okay, if you're into contract administration, can you negotiate contracts for four different projects at the same given time? So you need smart people and you need resources to make this happen. They're connected, they can travel, they can liaison with clientele, and they can get the job done. So matrix organization is a smart way of utilizing your human resources, your departments, to work on multiple projects. So it's combining what? Functions here on the top, and it's combining projects on the y-axis. On the x-axis, it's functions. On the y-axis, it's the projects. And when you make a grid, that's a matrix organization, basically. That's what we said, project structure. Boundaryless organizations. I think that's what is happening today's, because of the pandemic. I don't know. Where is New York Tech? It's there in my home. It's there in your home. It's there in the homes of several employees and staff. New York Tech is not confined only to Manhattan campus and Old Westbury campus or Vancouver campus. We are all over the globe. I have students who are taking this class from China, who are taking classes from America. Some of my students who have traveled back to India, they're taking classes at the same time. So where is New York Tech? It's all over the place. It's boundaryless. Your professor is in New York, you're in China, you're in India, you're somewhere else. I mean, this is boundaryless. Crazy times, huh? So software companies, IT companies, by the way, we work more than what we used to work before because we are boundaryless. People know that I'm not commuting. People know I'm not traveling for vacation. People know that I'm not going out too much because of COVID. They call me for meetings all the time. If they know I'm not teaching, I teach only Mondays and Wednesdays. All the rest of the days, I'm super busy with meetings from morning till evening. Boundaryless. Crazy times, huh? Because of technology, 24/7. Work morning, work night, work evening, work late night, work early morning. I was delivering a lecture for a faculty development program, which was being organized in India at 1:10 in the night, 1:10 till 2:40 in the early morning. I gave a lecture on people analytics for students and for faculty in India. Crazy, huh? 1:10 to 2:40, I'm speaking to my computer. And I have 60 delegates attending. So this is boundaryless organizations. 6.4, the learning objective is discuss the design challenges faced by today's companies. So yeah, these are, I don't know, they are challenges, but we overcome those challenges. Keeping employees connected. See, suppose we have campus in Abu Dhabi, in China, in Vancouver, in New York, in Jonesboro. So we have so many campuses. How to keep people connected? How do we learn from each other? How do we share core competences? How do we create a unified culture? How do we achieve the same results for our students? That's a challenge. It's not easy. Suppose we are going for accreditation. How do we get all the campuses to work for an accreditation? Right? Difficult. So managing global structural issues, we spoke about it. Sometimes you can have issues. Communication can be a problem. It can be time consuming. Bureaucracies can be there. Decision making can become slow. There can be a lot of issues because of structure. Building a learning organization, very important. We need to have a learning organization, which is reinventing, revitalizing, and renewing itself Designing flexible work arrangements, I think that's part of the challenges that we have today. So let's go and see what this learning organization looks like. So if you see, boundaryless organizations are one category of the design element of a learning organization. Teams, extremely important. Committees, subcommittees, communities of practice that you can create. Empowerment. You have to not be able to take decisions all by yourself. You want to empower your people. You want to empower them with skills. You want to empower them with resources and training. You want to empower them with, authority that they can be responsible for what they're doing. So that's the design elements for a learning organization. If you look at the culture, there's strong mutual relationships. There's a sense of community. We all belong to one particular, New York Tech or the School of Management. We care and we trust people, and that's why we are a learning organization. Leadership, shared vision. It's not one person having a vision. We are all part of that vision. We have collective aspirations which have been set free, and that's why we are a learning organization. If one person thinks great things, he's going to do nothing. If all of us have that same vision, we are going to do wonders. We're going to achieve synergies. We can make anything possible. Collaboration, that's what it is. It's a win win situation. It's not a zero sum game. Your loss is my gain is no longer valid. I learn, you learn, we learn together. We win together. I win, you win at the same time. That's collaboration. So I think these are, facets of learning organizations. When we share information, when we share best practices, when we share, our competences with other departments within the organization, it's not we giving something to them, we stand to gain something from them. That's what we call synergy. It's a win-win approach. That's what we call as collaboration. And that's a characteristic of a learning organization. And very important, that's what I was saying, generating ideas, sharing those ideas, willingness to implement those ideas, converting those ideas into great strategies, products, or services, or improvements in approaches or techniques and technologies. That's what is very important. Information is a key for learning organization. There has to be openness. It should be, these ideas have to be, information has to be shared on a timely basis. We want to have information which is accurate. Again, data analytics, decision making based on generated data, and your ability to analyze that data and take objective, informed, educated decisions. That's a key to learning organization. Put all these things together, you have a company that's not waiting for change to hit them. You have a company that's creating those changes, the opportunities for change, who are initiating the change, who are happy embracing change, and who have the kind of technologies and the processes in place where change is not difficult, but change is something that you enjoy. So learning organizations are like that. They're willing to learn. Guys, never ever think that you stopped learning. You just began your journey. Even when you hit 60 or 70 or 80 in your life, you're still learning. Likewise for organizations. They might be 100 years old company. You cannot say what worked 100 years ago will still work now. You have to reinvent yourself every single year. Otherwise, you'll be gone. Look at what Alibaba and Tencent and all these great companies from China have become so strong. Xiaomi, Huawei, how many companies from China become so strong? It's because technology has given these opportunities and they're very fast at doing things. They can scale up. Look at Alibaba's, scale of operations are huge. So they can take you by storm very quickly if you don't know how to reinvent yourself, if you don't know how to experiment with other formats of doing business. If you're not acting fast enough, you'll be out of business like that in a flash. And that's why being a learning organization is a key. As much as it is for us as individuals, we have to continuously reinvent ourselves and learn. What worked for me 10 years ago, not necessarily it'll work for me now. I have to reinvent myself. Otherwise, I'll be gone. I'll become obsolete. Flexible work arrangements, I think you all know this, telecommuting, that's possible. Compressed work weeks, flex time, which like Google does, job sharing. So, in tough times where we're not having business, you don't have to fire people. You could have two people share the same job, take 50% pay each. And then perhaps when your business gets stronger, sales increase, customers coming back to you, you can have full-time jobs and you can take full-time pays. It's sad that companies just fire employees left, right, and center, but you don't have to do that. You can do some interesting flexible work arrangements. Why not two professors teach, 50% of their loads and they take only 50% of the salaries instead of firing one person? Why can't we do this? We are human beings. But sadly, the top management, most places, they keep their jobs, they fire the middle level employees, they fire the workers, they fire the lower level people. It's sad. Contingent workers, I've seen my students say, I had a student in one of my classes in business who was full-time student, and he was doing freelance consulting work for several companies. This guy was making handsome money. He was making a lot of money when he was doing bachelor's. Full-time student, he goes nowhere, but he's doing, the consulting work is all on software. He's like a software consultant for them. He was designing stuff for them. He was debugging something. He was coding for them and doing all kinds of jobs. And he was making tons of money. Contingent. He is an employee for 10 different companies at the same time, making money from 10 different employers. He's not dependent on one employer for him to, for the employer to fire him someday and he'll be jobless. No, this guy was working for 10 employers. I don't know what he's doing now after graduating. He must have settled down into one big company making a lot of money. He was a smart kid, was never waiting to graduate to apply for jobs. This guy found he could make money sitting in classroom. This was pre-COVID. He used to sit in my class, and once the class is done, he's busy, replying to clients. He's doing something on his system. He was like a wizard, a magician, basically working. You might have freelance workers, contingent workers work for you. So we finished off our chapter. If you have doubts, you can ask me if you have any clarifications that you want.